Hi, today we're going to continue in our discussion of coaching white men. And I want to give you one example of a client I had, tell you a little bit about the circumstances, and then share with you some of the solutions that we came up with. So this was a client who was an expert in his field, a white man, kind of a shy person who was a get along, go along person who wants to get things done and make the world a little bit better. And so this person became knowledgeable in his field, and then attracted friends and like-minded individuals who shared in his vision. And that became a community, which then attracted more people, and then it became an organization and a for-profit business. And so after a few months of this person was confronted by many people in the organization about his misuse of power and about his lack of sensitivity, and in some cases, people accused him of intentionally doing things that he denied doing. So it was a tense situation. So after speaking with him, here's what happened from my perspective. This person, as he was growing his organization and attracted people who were his friends, and then it became bigger, the person never really set clear boundaries of saying that yesterday we were a club, today we are a for-profit organization. And so because of that, people felt resentful, and they felt taken advantage of, because he was starting to monetize the work that they were doing before it became clear that these people were also going to participate in some way, and then their role changed from being, let's say, volunteers to employees, things like that. And this was compounded by the social dynamics of the group. So this person started this organization with other like-minded people, and those people continued to stay with the group. And when others came in who were not in that inner circle, they felt left out. So it didn't help that the people who were feeling left out were not white men. And so when they saw a bunch of white men joking, and they didn't feel invited in this context of a business, they felt upset. They felt excluded. They felt unfairly treated. And so this brought this on. From the perspective of my client, he wasn't doing anything particularly wrong. He had this relationship with his friends. They were continuing to just joke around innocently. This wasn't against anyone. They weren't trying to be exclusionatory at all. So it didn't occur to them that someone might actually care to be in their environment, because they weren't doing anything against those people, they felt. So this was one of the dynamics we needed to unravel. And this is where power often happens. It's invisible to the person who has it. And in fact, this person for quite a long time resisted the idea of actually having power in the system, because he didn't perceive himself as being almighty, all-powerful, or seeking power, or being interested in power. But in fact, power happened to him because of the dynamic that was created without attention to it. New people who came in felt excluded because they weren't in the inner circle. It wasn't their fault that they weren't in the inner circle. It also wasn't the fault of the people who were, that they were there. But no one really looked at it from a systemic perspective, and no one said, oh yeah, folks, we need to really pay attention to these elements. And so some of the stuff boiled over. So how did we deal with this issue? So first, I listened to his story, and I really wanted to understand from his perspective what had been going on and what his feelings were. And certainly I validated his feelings. That doesn't mean that I agreed with it or that I didn't have a different perspective, but I really wanted to make sure that I built trust with the client, and then I was able to help him see a different perspective. I then mapped out what in my imagination might have happened given the story that he told me. So I imagine if he's having a conversation with his friends, but not everyone, so where were those other people? Could they see what was happening? Were they on the outside looking in? And yes, it turns out that the space was configured in a way that people could see us but couldn't hear us. Oh, okay, so that's an issue. Things like that. So then once we had a theory on what might have happened, I then went and I spoke with some of the folks who were affected. And they confirmed a lot of this. They also added some more information, some other nuances that my client just didn't really even consider. They weren't even on his radar. So the next step was for me to offer a facilitated conversation with this person, my client, and these employees and friends, and so on, to really understand what had been happening, to voice frustration in a safe setting that then I offered to facilitate, in their conversation to provide that level of safety. And to help them phrase things accurately so that they actually said what they meant, as opposed to risk sort of being misunderstood. So once we did that, that created an opportunity for my client to design a different culture, to be more intentional about the issues of feeling excluded versus included, the in-group and out-group, being more transparent about it, being more thoughtful about it, and acknowledging some of these things that exist. And it's this acknowledgement that really affected these other folks positively, because they understood that they can't be insiders in everything. They also understood that they can have their feelings, and that doesn't mean that something wrong is going on. But what it does mean is that it calls for a conversation potentially, and they need to feel free to be able to actually say, hey, wait a minute, I have to say that I didn't feel comfortable around this issue. And then my client had to be inviting and had to make space and time and safety for those conversations to take place. So once we're able to do that, the organization became a lot healthier, because then a lot of these things were transparent and they were visible and everyone understood the rules of the game. And everyone also understood that they really had to own their emotions, and they couldn't necessarily translate feeling something negative into some negative intent. So that's the case that I wanted to cover. If you find yourself either connecting with this client that I'm describing or connecting with some of the people on the outside, please let me know. You can write to me on LinkedIn or email me. You can check out my website at conflictyes.com, and I look forward to having more of these conversations. Thank you.